A celestial event mentioned in ancient Chinese texts turns out to be the oldest known reference to a candidate for Aurora, predating the next oldest one by some 3 centuries, according to a recent study by Marianus Anthony van der Sluis, an independent researcher based in Canada, and Hasashi Hayakawa from the Nagoya University. This finding was recently published in the journal Advances in Space Research. Now, the bamboo annals, or Zushu Jian in Mandarin, chronicle the history of China from the earliest legendary time to the time of their probable composition, in the 4th century BCE. Historical events aside, unusual observations in the sky make an occasional appearance in the text. Although this chronicle has been known to scholars for a very long time, a fresh look at such old texts sometimes yields surprising new insights. And in this case, the authors examine the mention of a 5-colored light seen in the northern part of the sky on a night towards the end of the reign of King Zhao of the Zhao dynasty. While the exact year is uncertain, they used up-to-date reconstructions of Chinese chronology to settle on 977 and 957 BCE as the 2 most likely years, depending on how Zhao's reign is dated. They found the record of the 5-colored light to be consistent with a large geomagnetic storm. When the mid-latitude aurora is sufficiently bright, it can present a spectacular of multiple colors. The researchers cite several examples of this from the bamboo books, and even some examples much closer to our time. Now, the Earth's north magnetic pole is known to have been inclined to the Eurasian side in the mid-10th century BCE. In fact, about 15 degrees closer to central China than at present. Therefore, the Aurora oval could have been visible to observers in central China at times of significant magnetic disturbance. Now, the study estimates that the equatorward boundary of the Aurora oval would have been located at the magnetic latitude of 40 degrees or less on some occasions. Now, this would in fact be the earliest datable record of an aurora in recorded history. The finding comes barely 2 years after that of the previous holder of this distinction. Several records of auroral candidate inscribed on cuneiform tablets by Assyrian astronomers in the period 679 to 655 BCE were known as early as 2019. Now, some scientists have also associated Ezekiel's vision, which is now dated to 594 or 593 BCE, with the auroral visibility in the Mideast that this paper describes. But caveat must be noted for its reliability. Otherwise, there is another datable record of an early candidate aurora, and it has been found in 567 BCE in the astronomical diary of the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar II. And this paper came out in 2017. The earliest drawings of datable auroras. And we now know that that's not true. Now, why did it take so long for scientists to recognize the aurora in the 5-colored light of this chronicle entry in the bamboo books? Well, one reason is that the bamboo annals have a very checkered history. The original manuscript was lost and then rediscovered in the 3rd century, and then lost again during the Song dynasty, And then in the 16th century, a variant text was printed in which the object in the sky was no longer an aurora or a five-colored light, but a comet. Similar to the work of Graham Hancock. But I do digress. Now, the new study shows that this cannot have been the original reading, and it must have been an aurora. It's interesting in itself that popular descriptions of the Northern Lights can be pushed back 3,000 years from the present. Such historical information is valuable for many reasons. It helps scientists to model long-term patterns in space weather variability and unrest on timescales from decades to millennia. Now, understanding these fluctuations can in turn help societies, like the modern one we're living in, prepare for future solar eruptions of great magnitude. And the disruption of the technological infrastructure that it will cause. Now, this record is now the only known historical reference to space weather events before the Homeric grand solar minimum, which was 810 to 740 BCE, which should preferably be called the Neo-Assyrian grand minimum, owing to Homer's controversial historic dates. Now, what we do know is for the last 100,000 years, the magnetic dipole has been shifting dramatically on a time scale of a few thousand years, up and down. About every 2,000 years, there's a major shift. The one we're talking about 3,000 years ago is here, the Homeric minimum. And there are other events here associated with the drop downs in the dipole where these events occur. The most impressive would be the extinction of the Neanderthal 41,000 years ago. An almost complete magnetic reversal of the Earth, but it was not. Now, the bamboo books are controversial. The people that are interpreting them have the best intentions, which is why we're presenting this podcast this evening. And the solar superstorm of 2610 years ago may be the very storm they're talking about. Evidence of an enormous solar storm that struck Earth 2,610 years ago has been found in ice cores from Greenland. And researchers also point to sun as the likely source of the 8th century Charlemagne event, which is corroborated by the 774-775 carbon-14 spike in ice core data. And again, we can see these events reflected in climate. If we go back 2,600 years ago to the event in question, there's a huge drop down in the temperature during the Homeric minimum. The Charlemagne event is the beginning of the Little Ice Age. And so these events are precursors to the end of the empire, because not only this time will it fry the grid, but it will change the climate in epic ways, as the data shows. Now, what was it exactly that the ancients saw in the night sky during these events is anyone's guess, but we do know that Native Americans have a cacophony of unexplained petroglyphs that match plasma discharge in the lab. These events would be associated with solar proton events in the sky, and then associated with climate change on Earth. Was it the solar superstorm 2,700 years ago that these natives were recording? Were they recording it in the Far East in the bamboo Annals? It's anyone's guess. but we think we have a good argument that we know, or we're getting to the bottom of what actually happened in the near future of humanity. And it ended in a dark age. Where we're headed into, which is why we're having Squatterman 2022, the Plasma Petroglyph Tour. Just a few tickets left for the conference, the private Petroglyph Tour, and the general Petroglyph Tour. So get your tickets now. There's even a VIP dinner Sunday night in the town of Ruidoso, New Mexico, which is currently on fire. And our hearts and prayers go out to them. Now, the modern unprecedented warming has not happened. But in fact, a cooling happened during the Charlemagne event and right after. And all of the other events we're describing. Here's the 2800-year event. Radical cooling after the event. Now, I know that correlation is not causation. But when you correlate multiple events all on the same data, you're getting somewhere. Your theory is holding water. And for the last 8 years, our theory has not gone away. It's only grown stronger. Thanks to all our one-time donors, our Patreons, the people that share this video. You're all heroes. We love you. We're getting somewhere. We hope to meet you and see each and every one of you in the desert, in Ruidoso, for Squatterman 2022, as the pieces come together. And that's a boon to knowledge. Be safe. We love you.